We'll call the meeting to order. Okay. And I would like a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
in favor,
Yes.
any opposed? Okay, thank you. And consideration of the minutes of our meeting for January 18th. I had one minor comment. Find it.
Yeah, is that where it says Clausen on page 4?
Yeah.
Clausen notice he was not available. It should be Doran. Yes, I know that myself. Just a little name correction. On page 4, about 2/3 of the way down where it's identifies Clausen noted he is not available, and it should be Doran.
Okay, anybody else? Have a correction or addition? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And I just want to make a comment that I thought the minutes were really quite good this time.
I would agree. Yeah.
John's work.
So. Introduce our new member, Tim Ramey, but he's not here yet. I guess he's coming, right?
Yeah. I believe Tim's on right now and he had jury duty today. He's going to be our new member and he'll be here shortly. And then also just want to introduce Bill Kobeisman, who's the city attorney, who's with us this evening as well.
Good to see you here. So I guess we'll hold off on introducing Tim until he gets here. Public comment. This will be time for comments on anything unrelated to tonight's agenda. Are there any? Okay. And then DRB 2314, which is a continuation of the public hearing. Quasi judicial hearing regarding proposal to demolish a garage and rebuild a new garage with accessory dwelling unit. Property located at 279 Volcana Avenue. Application will be reviewed against criteria of the municipal code. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the design review board to hear this matter? Does any commission member believe he has a conflict of interest, personal bias?
He or she,
Okay,
or they.
just saying.
You have a objection?
No,
Oh, okay.
expecting.
He or she has come. Any member contacts or made a site visit?
That's
Yes, I did make a site visit.
Harvey was there for the whole dance.
Go ahead and just comment on that real quick. He did an excellent job, by the way. Yeah, so this is one of those ones that it's worthwhile just mentioning the ex parte contact. We at the last meeting did discuss the willingness of staff and the applicant along with board member Clausen to visit the site and take some photos with the poles that you can see and some drawings that were done as part of that. So we just wanted to reflect that we were out there and just basically participated in holding and getting the pictures and taking a look. So I don't believe that had any sort of influence in terms of discussion. We just wanted to get that information to the board as requested.
Thank you.
Commendable effort.
Is there any additional correspondence on this one?
No.
Thank you. Okay, call for public testimony. Pertinent criteria to be considered or noted in the staff report and listed in the criteria sheets posted. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward that criteria. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements of evidence will preclude appeal based on that issue. Prior to conclusion of initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. The design review board will grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons will first receive from the chair, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify who they represent. Is there by the applicant?
Yes, we have
What do you?
Rochelle.
Yeah, yes, good evening. My name's Scott Rochelle, my address 279 Gulkennan. I've waiting to hear the outcome of today's meeting after we went out there on the 5th with the pole to take height measurements along with the pictures that the O'Neills submitted. I guess that's where we're at right now to see what whether this gets approved or not. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Do they have to say their mailing address? Because he just said his address.
That's- Yeah, my physical mailing address is 17827 37th Place West, Linwood, Washington, 98037.
That's standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just asking.
Yep.
Yeah, the idea is that they want to make sure that when the decision's made, the decision is delivered to the proper mailing address.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Were there any presentations by proponents? Any presentations by opponents? Is there any staff response?
No, there's no staff response beyond what is in the
Okay,
report.
does the applicant or proponents wish to make any additional statements?
None.
Okay, so that being the case, I will close the public hearing and move.
I will make a motion to approve the, oh gosh, where is it? DRB 23-14, ADU application.
I second.
Like to address one of the proposed revisions by the one of the opponents, that the height be moved, or the new construction be moved 5 feet to the east to eliminate any obstruction of view. Is there a reason why that can't happen?
That's my question, one of my questions also.
Sounds like a question for the architect and the applicant.
It's not here.
Vito's on.
The applicant is on.
Yeah, Vito's on.
No, keep moving around.
Mr. Rochelle, are you there?
We losing?
He just dropped on.
It keeps shifting around over here. Let him talk. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Great, thank you. The reason for not wanting to shift it 5 more feet east is there's several reasons. I'll end up losing more of my yard because of the existing driveway that comes into the existing house. I'll end up having to pay more for the hookup fees for the sewer, water, and gas because that is charged by the foot. I've already got the estimates in place, so I want to keep my cost in line, but by doing so, then I have to resubmit and pay a higher price than.
And it also blocks the other neighbors.
Not sure I understand how that works since it's a new construction in any case and the existing building does not have utilities.
The part of the issue is they're going to tee in off, my understanding, tee in off the main water line to the house that's currently there, as well as to do the ADU, they would hook into the sewer. That now being shifted 5 feet east, then it runs a longer sewer line and the additional gas line is my understanding.
My opinion is that would not be very expensive. It wouldn't add very much at all. And in a couple of the neighbors' drawings, they're showing a hip roof as well and that seems to pretty well clear the view. What about a hip roof?
The hip roof would add more expense because I would need to have my architect redesign the roof along with the cost of materials and labor from my contractor.
Yeah, but if you're using trusses, that's pretty minor.
But I'm using exposed, I'm having exposed beam put inside the ADU for aesthetic look inside, and all that would have to be changed.
If we were to require one of those two alternatives, which would you prefer?
Neither.
Neither. I've submitted it for what I wanted. I'm trying to respect the view of other people. I'm trying to save my as much yard as I can possibly, as well as landscaping for room for landscaping. And if I keep moving it, if I move it in middle of the yard or to the middle of the property more, I'm starting to encroach my current driveway going in, as well as now the driveway to access the ADU puts it in an odd position as well.
I don't see the view as being significantly altered. And I mean, I have to wonder, and I don't know, Steve, could the applicant have just as easily submitted an application for a new dwelling 2-story house rather than a garage
Yeah, safe.
use structure, which could have been right in the footprint where the current home is?
Yeah, if, for example, they were going to remove the house and develop something new, yeah, they could do a 2-story home without having to come to any type of board. That's just a staff approval.
The input I would have on that from the site vid, I went over and I think it was the only person other than a photographer on the neighbor's deck. And the neighbor's being very generous in his sketches. My observation standing there was that he was going to lose quite a bit more view. So, yeah, I think he's just being very generous. And so it seems like a couple of relatively, or 1 or 2 relatively minor changes could make this an easy decision. And another thing about going 2 stories, it's not, you can't have an ADU. So it's another concern I have, but I think if you could just make some minor change and have a happy neighbor, it seems like a really good idea, and then clear the view completely.
I feel that Mr. Rochelle has been a good neighbor in accommodating the O'Neill's concern for their minimal reduction of the view of the top of Haystack Rock. And if you look at one of the photographs that was submitted, I think by the opponent, the deck chair seems to point west towards the ocean rather than north towards Haystack Rock. There's a lot of roof line in that view as well. I think Mr. Rochelle is being a very respectful neighbor as well as providing some additional housing in that neighborhood, so.
No question about it. The additional housing is important.
So that's the point where I'd like to bring up maybe Scott Rochelle, that there is a bill, a new Senate bill, I have it pulled up, 919, that if you newly constructed dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit, newly converted duplex, triplex, quadruplex, that's how you say it, is used as an occupant's primary residence, that it will apply a property tax reduction, or if the city decides to adopt it, for 5 years. So I'd like to actually bring that forward to the city. So if he makes it a primary residence, then he actually gets a
To me like a
property tax reduction if we
Long-term.
decide to adopt this as a city. So I think it'd be behoove us to do that.
If I could mention one other note, by moving the structure 5 feet to the east, I now have to take into consideration of the neighbors directly east of my property too, because that now might be a view issue for them, which I think it will block their view as well now. So I'm trying to accommodate everyone in the way of allowing the view as much as possible.
And still be able to.
I agree with that. I mean, I think that he's trying to be as accommodating as possible with a construction that is allowed. I'm not sure if this is a second home for the O'Neills. Do we know that?
What the people complaining?
The-
Yes, it is.
The opponents, it is a second. home.
Yeah.
So
Mention it.
Okay, well, we do have a motion on the floor to approve the site plan as presented. If it's been seconded,
I seconded.
those in favor,
yes, I,
All right.
any opposed? Okay. Architectural design, is there a motion to approve the architectural design?
I make a motion to approve the architectural design.
second,
Those in favor? Aye.
yes.
All right.
Any opposed? Okay. Landscape design,
Just a,
I didn't really see much land.
Well, that's where I might say that I would suggest, I don't know in residential how much we can really oversee landscape plans, but I would like to see some landscape. He mentioned that he was gonna pull up the hydrangeas.
I wonder if we should ask them what their thoughts might be.
Okay, yeah,
is that? in-
Mr. Rochelle, if we could ask you again on your landscape plans, I know that last
Yes.
meeting, you mentioned that you were hoping to save the hydrangeas that are currently. And I think I was the one that kind of thought that during construction, they probably wouldn't last for replanting. So just wondering if you've had any more thoughts about landscaping?
Yes, absolutely.
property?
What I plan on doing is the existing plants that are currently around the structure that needs to be demolished. There are 2 fuchsia plants, 1 rose plant, and the hydrangea there. and I was going to have them uprooted. They've already been pruned back basically to as much as can be pruned back. They're going to be uprooted, transplanted in part of the back of the area until the structure is built, and then I was going to retransplant them along with new grass as well to be put down because of after the excavate, I'm sure it'll be a muddy mess. But I'm open to suggestions on if other types of plant materials. I'd love to put more plants in there, but I know everyone has to fight the elk all the time because they seem to eat everything.
She did some suggestions.
Right. That satisfies any landscaping questions that he's mindful and planning to landscape it according to probably the neighborhood and elk resistance. So thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the landscape design.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, moving on.
You wanna? It's
Oh, backing up. Want to introduce Tim Ramey, our newest member. Welcome to the club.
And I offer my apologies to the board. I was under the control of the court in Clatsop County until 5:35, but a trial was supposed to be over at 5. I was serving on jury duty, but I was tuned in with Zoom until I disconnected as I walked in the door. So I actually heard everything.
Good. Well, nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Back to full strength.
oh,
Okay, next on the agenda is continuation of DRB 24-03. A quasi judicial hearing regarding J. Orloff Havana Design on behalf of Patrick Dave LLC to build a new detached a family development and that with detached. Did I skip one?
he skips. I
Yeah,
think we're
we're on.
the
We're on.
conference center.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Did I do that?
Been on vacation.
It's
Probably
easy.
You have jet lag.
It's easy. when you don't pay attention. Okay. Never mind. This is a public hearing continuation of DRB. No, that's not it either.
You need a highlighter.
Two.
It's
2402, he says.
2402. Let's do that 2402. Yeah.
I got it. I have it if you need it.
2402.
Yep, there you go.
I found it. Thank you. Skip a page. Okay, continuation of DRB 24-02, quasi judicial hearing regarding Glenn Miller application on behalf of Cannon Beach Conference Center to remove and replace existing siding, install new siding it's located at 288 Hemlock Street. Application will be reviewed against the criteria of the municipal code, chapter 17.44. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction? Hear this matter at this time. Any commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commission member had any ex parte contact?
Since last month.
I go by all the time.
Okay. Staff report.
Good evening. This is a supplemental staff report. The proposed project is replacement of existing siding on the front for the beachfront building of the Cannon Beach Conference Center, 288 North Hemlock. Applicant intends for the beachfront building to match the look and feel of the nearby Pacific View Lodge, which also belongs to the conference center. No changes in site design or landscaping are proposed as part of this application. During this item's initial evidentiary hearing, the design review board requested additional information and revisions to the proposed design. The applicant submitted a new project design on February 14th, 2024, and this is included as Exhibit A3.
Any additional comments? Okay, call for public testimony. Pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff report and listed in the criteria sheets. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to inform the decision maker. Party's opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal. Prior to conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. The design review board will grant such arguments based on continued testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify will first receive recognition from the chair, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify who they represent. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes.
Glenn Miller, P.O. Box 943, Cannon Beach. I'm the maintenance manager at the Cannon Beach Conference Center. And last board, it was you guys liked the materials that we chose for the new siding, but had questions about paint color and its correspondence with the other building that we have. So we made some changes, and I'm going to have Jamie and Lori come up and talk about the changes that we are proposing.
Good, thank you.
Hello, board. I'm Jamie Lloyd, Director of Conferences at the Center. I want to go over a couple of changes based upon your feedback that you gave us the last time. Primarily colors. We actually put together a color board because what you see on the screen and the printouts you get are not indicative of the colors. Basically, what we've done here, and we can go through the actual design. There's some design changes as well. We've kind of done basically a dual application of materials. So the top would be a shape composite that we actually are going to paint. We propose to paint with a Westchester gray. It's a Sherwin-Williams color. You can see there 2849. And then we're adding a belly band or a band that goes across and separates the different materials as well as colors. So the mid part of that would be actually extra white, Williams color 706. And then the siding, which is horizontal sign on the bottom part of our building, which would be sweater weather, very appropriate for the bottom color, as you can see here, exactly painted exactly on the material that we're using. In your document, you can see there on renders, we have a render A, and render A is on the beach facing part of the property, and render B is the street facing part of the property. And as you can see in both those renders, we try to get as close as we could as the color, but again, that's where we brought the sample so you can see. So what we've added here, based on some of your responses, is to add a little more architectural interest to the building because there's a lot of, we know a lot of face to it. So with the belly band or the band forward, and then actually add both horizontal and vertical architectural elements to really kind of break up a little bit of the whole entire building. So again, we would have two colors, so we create a little bit of difference that way, a little darker on the top and a little lighter on the bottom. This, as you know, is not an unheard architectural design. We've seen that in other buildings that are similar to this, so we didn't go too far away. But we also wanted to keep it connected somewhat to what we have as far as our Pacific View Lodge, but it's different. As you can see, we've added some features that kind of pick up from that, but the actual overall design is very unique to itself, so it doesn't feel like it's exactly the same kind of building. So then you can see on the other render, like I said, from the street side, we did the same kind of thing around to the parking lot area. We did make a couple of changes on the front end. We took off, there's an area right at the very front doors. That was actually a whole entire white cladding of white that we took off and we put on kind of a triangle shape that actually mimics the parking. Kind of simplified the design from the street side. We went all shakes from the front end. That's the only place that has all shakes. The rest of it has a combination of shakes and horizontal side. So again, those are some features that we wanted to, again, bring to you guys and see if that was something that met the criteria of the board and also felt like it up-leveled the look and feel of the. So, any questions?
Thank you. The sweater weather on the drawings, it looks like it's considerably darker gray than what you've got on the panel.
Not look at those as color. This is architecture only.
I liked it better.
You like it better?
There's not much contrast between the gray and the white on the sample board.
Well, most of
The
the,
lighting, but
yeah, the lighting in here is not even indicative. We'd actually.
Put it outside and it looks very good.
Yeah, it's
you know,
definitely there's contrast there, but we didn't want to make it too contrasty. But using the materials being more of the component.
okay. I do like the redesign a lot better.
How do y'all feel about that belly band? Well, it doesn't currently have one in the, so that would be an addition. They're doing currently the building is. Material.
This is what they're talking about, that,
Yeah,
that's what they're talking.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the belly band, the white.
Yeah,
And
no, I like it.
it currently doesn't.
I like it. It breaks up the monotony.
Color is your window trim then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Trim would be that extra white.
It was,
And this is for perspective, the belly band on the building will actually be 10 or 12 inches wide. That's, but on a little board like this, it would overwhelm the look, so.
it breaks up the monotony. It looks penitentiary here and then now it's a little less, a little more hotel-y. Or, in my opinion. I almost said IMO, sorry.
Any other comments? Or any presentation by proponents? Any presentation by opponents?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to note Mr. O'Neill has raised his hand. He raised it after the board had closed their public testimony during the previous agenda item. I don't know if you want to call on him to speak. But again, as I said, he did not raise his hand when he had the opportunity during the public comment portion.
I don't have a problem with him speaking, but I don't think it's gonna change anything. It's been seconded and approved, correct?
Yeah, I guess with that, what I would suggest doing is I would continue with this matter and complete it. And then maybe if you wanted, we could discuss that briefly after we take action on this one.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, is there any additional staff response?
No, there is not.
the additional statements from the applicant or proponents? Okay, we'll close this hearing then and move to consideration. Is there a motion to approve site plan? There's not really any site plan here.
Oh.
The only thing we're looking at is architectural design. Correct. Motion to approve the architectural design.
So moved.
Second, oh, or
Second.
third.
Okay, those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you. All right.
So organized, Anita.
That's right. Yeah.
Mine's all like messy and you're like.
Glad you noticed.
Beautiful. A plus.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, I guess so the action right now is that the board took action on that item, the Blue Kana one. There is kind of the process of getting the hand up, but if you want, we certainly can have the opportunity to let him speak, but at this point in time, action's been taken to approve the matter. So I don't know if there's anything else on that.
See what you have to say.
Are you there, Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Again, please be brief.
Yes, I will. I am sorry, but I have actually been raising my hand and trying to speak until recently. I got a control that popped up on my computer, allowing myself to be unmuted. I do have my technical son here that looked through my computer and looked at everything and said, Dad, you were on a Zoom call 4 hours ago today and it worked. Your controls were turned off that I did not turn them off, but it looks like they were not enabled on the city side. So
Correct. We have to give people permission to speak. That's why we require you to raise your hand when we call on applicants, proponents, and opponents.
And I did raise my hand several times, including trying to log in on my phone. So I was actively trying to raise and lower the hand.
Correct. However, you raised your hand after the public deliberation had been closed.
I actually had been raising my hand since the start of the meeting, trying to engage when it was asked for proponents.
Okay.
It's not Rochelle's.
All right.
So my only comment is, and you actually have a member that did work with us, Jay Olroff, that is with Holovana Design there today. And I think Councilmember Harvey did come out to the site, and as we walked through and looked at things, again, no comments, but many of the renderings or the drawings provided by Jay that show the impact, and then modifications to what that impact could be. We're also from a standing position versus a seating position, which greatly deteriorates the view towards Haystack Rock. And again, trying to be mindful and conscious of getting the ADU unit built. But however, looking at how we could minimize the impact, there were two options that came up as discussed. One was moving the structure simply 5 feet over. That 5 feet over then would greatly minimize, even reduce any seated position views towards Haystack Rock from the piece of property itself from multiple locations, as well as creating a hip style roof, which Jay could probably make comment there, but a hip style roof would then also greatly minimize, even keeping the structure in its existing proposed position. It would still allow for an open vaulted ceiling on the inside. So that is another viable option, again, minimizing and keeping even the structure in its proposed location. So I apologize. We were raising our hand. I accessed via my cell phone as well as a computer that I'm on, raised it up and down multiple times, tried to engage in conversation, and we were not getting recognized. So we started typing in the chat, which I think even the chat was typed in prior to some of the end of the meeting saying, hey, we can't be heard. So, yeah, we're not against ADUs. We're not against any of the opportunities that are looking to be presented and developed in the area, other than if there is a way where we can minimize the impact to our piece of property. And from the piece of property, other than going with a single story structure, which sounds like is not in the equation, The moving of the structure simply 5 feet to the east and or a hip style roof would accommodate minimizing the impact on our piece of property.
Okay,
We are located, we do maintain a mailing residence in Cannon Beach.
We're there all the time.
We are in the town all the time. We have been there for 10 plus going on 12 years. My daughter works for the Terre Haute family and has ever since she was 15 years old, all throughout the year. My son Pierce is looking forward to trying to become a bicycle advisor and visitor guide in town to wanting to scoop at Susie Scoops ice cream. So we enjoy the town. We enjoy the people we've met in the town over the last decade plus, and we try to be active contributors in the town. And we're just looking for an opportunity through the committee to present back a small modification to what's being proposed by Scott Rochelle. And that is a 5-foot moving of the structure to the east and or at its existing location, redesigning the roof with a hip roof, which would still allow for no vaulted or open ceilings on the inside, just with a hip roof style.
All right. Thank you for the testimony. As you may have heard, the committee had taken action to prove the structure as was presented. And so we will provide notification to you in terms of any type of process that's available from here in terms of parties of record and other avenues or appeals that are available to all the parties of record. So we will be sending that decision to you in the very near future. Okay.
thanks. Okay, for real this time, continuation of DRB 2403. J. Orloff Philadelphia Design on behalf of Patrick/Dave LLC to build a new detached multifamily development with detached garages. The property located on Forest Lawn and Hemlock Streets is residential medium density R2 zone. Application will be reviewed against the municipal code, chapter 17.44. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the design review board at this time? Does any commission member believe PG has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Any commission member had an ex parte contact or visit? I have not been there again, but I did make a visit earlier.
Agreed.
Okay. Is there, the staff report?
All right, thank you. At the last meeting, this matter was continued. There were several questions that really had to do with access initially and what the plan commission was going to do with the conditional use permit. Subsequently to that continuation, the plan commission heard this matter and did approve the footpath that was associated with this particular development. So what that was is the bridge, and at that last meeting, there were several questions about the design of the bridge, what it looked like, where it was located. I think there were also some questions in terms of some of the landscape plans and things like that. I'll probably end up letting the applicant speak to that a little bit. But I think for some background, what we are taking a look at is the proposal is to construct a 2-family dwelling consisting of 2 detached dwelling units on a single undeveloped parcel of land on the north end of Forest Lawn. The subject property is zoned R2 residential moderate density, and 2-family dwellings are permitted use in that zoning classification. There's been some questions on the 2-family dwellings, And the municipal code defines a duplex or a two-family dwelling as a building or buildings containing two dwelling units with or without common wall or ceiling. And there are no direct interior connection doorways. And this application meets the definition of two dwellings without a common wall or ceiling. In addition to the two dwelling units, the application includes a separate detached garage with storage areas. And they will also be looking to add some additional parking on Forest Lawn. The subject property is inventoried wetland lot of record and an application for a conditional use permit for the elevated pedestrian walkway in the wetland. And its buffer area was heard by the Plan Commission where it was approved with conditions. I know that the Design Review Board wanted to hear what some of those conditions were. I have those listed, but if you like, I could go through those briefly and touch base on what those were. Yes, yeah. So the maximum size of an accessory structure is supposed to be a maximum of 120 square feet, and they're meeting that. The owner shall obtain temporary access to and from South Hemlock through the Public Works Department prior to building permit issuance. The reason for that is there is a plat note that prevents access to and from Hemlock Avenue as far as a permanent access. The temporary access would be for construction only so that the trucks and things like that don't have to go through the wetlands to reach the uplands for the construction. The temporary access to South Hemlock Street is for construction purposes only and shall not be used as a permanent access for the use of the dwellings. Permanent access to the dwellings shall be from Forest Lawn only. The temporary access will be permanently closed by revegetating and returning to its natural state in consultation with the city arborist. The owner shall submit plans for the restoration to the Community Development Department and the city's arborist, specifically detailing how the temporary access to South Hemlock Street will be closed. If a temporary certificate of occupancy is requested and granted, the applicant shall permanently close the temporary access 30 days after a temporary occupancy permit has been issued. In no case shall a final certificate of occupancy be granted until the temporary access to South Hemlock is permanently closed. The garage storage accessory structure shall not be used as an accessory dwelling unit or other habitation. It indicates per section 15.4.100, that should actually be 17.54.080, which is what is referred to as the regulations on accessory dwelling units. So we just wanted to make sure that the garage couldn't be used as an ADU. Just for everyone's clarification, in the R2 zone, if you do a duplex, an accessory dwelling unit is not permitted. It's only permitted with single family developments, but I know that was a concern and we wanted to just put that in there just to make sure that everyone was clear on that. The applicant shall meet all required storm drainage policies of the city, and the stormwater would be collected from the dwellings is to be retained on site and directing the stormwater to the property's wetlands instead of being piped to the city's stormwater sewer. And the applicant will work with the Public Works Department in terms of getting the approvals to do that. The owner shall provide a draft copy of the homeowners association agreement for the management of all common areas, including but not limited to protection and functionality of the wetlands, the footpath, boardwalk, the garage, and et cetera, prior to building permit issuance. And prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the owner shall provide a recorded copy of the homeowners association agreement from Clatsop County to the Community Development Department. The building developer is responsible for and shall fulfill all the obligations of the homeowners association until such times the homeowners association is assigned to the new buyers or property owners. And the builder developer shall complete all required conditions of approval prior to issuance of final certificate of occupancy. So those were just a number of the conditions that the Plan Commission wanted to make sure to address some of the conditions that they felt were out there.
Been formalized, they're
yes, they have been included in the findings document that has been adopted by the Plan Commission. So the conditions are incorporated into the findings that were used to approve the footbridge.
Thank you.
During the initial evidentiary hearing, The design review board continued the hearing with the request that the applicant provide some additional information with, like I said, the elevated pedestrian way. I think there was some discussion on some of the landscaping, and again, just to have those conditions more defined so that the board knew the plan commission had approved the access. The bridge is 24 feet long, 4.5 feet wide. And it may or may not have a railing to it. There's some discussion on the landscaping, but I would probably defer that on over to the applicants. So I can answer any questions, or the applicants here to address the rest of the application.
Thank you.
Okay,
We're not saying anything about the temporary bridge. I mean, temporary access.
Access, there's no reason that you can't discuss it, but I think the conditions that were placed were well done by the plan commission to, I think, properly address that it allows for the construction temporarily, but it wouldn't be permanent, you know, on Hemlock itself. So there's no reason that you can't discuss it, but I thought that was pretty well thought out.
And this is considered a duplex.
Right, right. So our definition says it can be attached or
Yeah.
detached. And so in this particular instance, it does meet that the definition.
This would also be under the thing I keep pushing, the Bill 919, a newly constructed duplex.
Gotcha.
5-year tax exemption for whatever. So I'm just pushing.
Yep.
Housing.
Yeah.
the additional correspondence. These would be right.
Right. Yeah, there was some additional correspondence. I believe one of the letters was from Mike Bates, who had a couple of different comments. And then I believe Jamie Lerma also submitted a letter. Both of those came in this afternoon.
Okay. Mike Bates, currently not in agreement with the planning commission's approval. And he lists at least 3 different things that he thinks are wrong with that.
He's on planning though. He's on the planning.
Yeah, he was excused, or he excused himself from
Oh.
considerations for some reason.
Can you do that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think there was, you know, he had some concerns about, I think, you know, living pretty close by and had some concerns. So I think there was a thought in his mind that it would be better not to participate in that decision.
So he can just participate as a regular citizen.
So he is writing this as Mike Bates citizen,
Okay.
not as plan commission member.
Okay.
Obviously, he's on the plan commission.
Yeah.
So how do we look at his comments? Yep, do we answer one of them?
You could certainly talk about that if you want. I could try to address some of them, and then the plan commission, or I'm sorry, the design review board could discuss that further if you'd like. But if you want, I could just summarize some things if you'd like.
To continue again now because he did it.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
We've all had an opportunity to read this.
Sure. Yep. So I'm not saying I need to, but
The only one that really has a major impact to me is the first one where he talks about the setback not being sufficient. Can you address that?
yeah, so basically, it's been staff's determination and in a way, plan commission's determination that common property line is considered an interior side lot line. One of the things when the bridge originally came in, the plan commission indicated that was an accessory structure which needed to be 5 feet from the side property line. And so even the plan commission somewhat acknowledged the fact that the setback in that area is 5 feet. So how the setbacks read is that along a front or a street, you have to be 15 feet. Structures have to be 15 feet from those front and side property lines. I might get up if you don't mind to kind of maybe explain this. So if you look at this, you got hemlock to the east, you have forest lawn to the west, and you have forest lawn meeting up hemlock on the north side of the property. Anytime you have frontage along a street, the setback's 15 feet. So, and you can see there's kind of like you can see the 15-foot setback. That's what this says right here along there. And then there's another one that indicates the 15-foot front setback here. The homes will be accessing forest lawn because they can't access hemlock. So the address and the front property line is technically forest lawn with kind of, this would be typically a rear, but because it's on a street. So those are the 15s. The south property line is kind of an interior, what would be referred to as an interior side lot line. And so this lot line in this area, even though it's kind of, this is kind of an, not a typical lot, right, in terms of its size, but this whole area that's common to the property to the south is considered a side property line. And the side property line setback is 5 feet.
What is the square footage of the lot?
I don't know it exactly, but I think it's approximately a little over an acre. If you want the exact.
Large, it wasn't a 5,000 square foot lot. Yeah.
Right. So I think there's, because it's kind of odd shaped and because it has all the streets, there's some question there as far as interpretations and things like that. But that's how it's looked at, 15 feet along the streets. And that side, that south lot line is considered a side yard, and that's why it's 5 feet. So that's where the difference in what Mike is indicating and what the staff and kind of plan commission looked at for the bridge.
It is a large lot, but it is significantly constrained by a wetland that makes a large portion of it unbuildable.
There was in the geotechnical report that was attached here. It looked like there was a proposal to split the lot into 3 parts. Is that gone away?
Yeah, I think, and probably have the applicant kind of speak to some of this. At this point in time, I think there's been a number of proposals on the lot. And I think it started off with maybe 8 lots. I think it went down to 3 lots. That some of that geo report may have been from a previous submittal as far as talking about the 3 lots. So at this point in time, this is all the development is on the 1 lot. And that's why you hear some of the things about the homeowners association as to who's going to control, that both whoever owns the 2 dwellings will all each work together in terms of maintaining the garages, the lands, the wetlands, things like that. So this is a 1 lot development.
Okay, thank you.
So it can't be turned into a condo and each unit sold separately? Would that change any of the things that we're looking at here as far as duplex?
So by the city's code, it is defined as a duplex under the city code. In terms of condominium and creating a condominium, the city can't prevent that. The way this, that condominium conversion is controlled by state law, and the city can't prevent a condominium from occurring on the property.
Is there any way to, like a deed restriction or something that has been introduced that would enforce the duplex other than being able to turn it into a state law, just kind of super.
Mike's letter said that state law kind of controls there.
Okay.
I don't.
My impression was that the whole thing with the homeowners association was aimed at the opportunity to split the ownership of the two homes
Right,
somehow,
yeah.
possibly by condominiumizing.
So then I wonder if by doing that, if it turns into a condominium, could that garage storage area then become ADU or another dwelling unit? I mean, would the ADU,
Prohibited by the.
well, as a duplex, but if it's a condominium, would they then be able to convert the garage storage into a dwelling? Or ADU
No,
condominiums?
because it would still be a duplex regardless of whether or not it's condominiumized. Condominiumizing simply refers to the property ownership,
Okay,
not the nature of the structure.
okay. I mean, I guess that's what I'm just wondering, because I just feel like that garage and that storage unit, I mean, they've got the parking requirements with the parking pad. And from the geo report, it did look like there were gonna be 3 dwelling units proposed. And so then you've got a nice covered garage and a nice big storage unit. So that's where I'm just wondering, by converting the duplex to condominiums, if that would supersede the ADU.
Right, and it's a good question, it's a good question, and I think that's why we wanted to specifically put it in the conditions. And our, the zoning ordinance is pretty clear on spelling out, hey, this is only allowed on a single family property. So, I don't know, Bill, if there's anything, but I am pretty comfortable that, with those conditions and with our ordinance that that was why it was specifically in there. And I think we're covered both ways.
Okay, thank you.
It's not possible, I think, under the code to be both a duplex and an ADU on the same property, correct?
Right.
Right.
And I should note that there's a lot of bills about housing in the legislature, and that may well override some of the city's regulations. I don't think anything that would allow it at this point, but the final 2024 legislature isn't done, and certainly the governor is very focused on housing.
Yeah.
Know why we would prohibit an ADU?
I was curious, why do we care?
Family property.
I don't know if the idea behind it is strictly, on a 5,000 square foot lot. If you do a duplex, that's taking a lot of that lot already. So in a way, an ADU kind of almost serves as in essence, kind of a duplex. So I think it's, the idea or the concept was not just to sit there and, be able to just fully fill your lot with properties. So I think the idea was if you're in a higher density zone, you have the ability already to do, multiple units. So I think the single family, and correct me if I'm wrong, was part of something through the state legislation that allowed for ADUs on single family lots.
Correct.
Multiple meaning 2.
Right.
Yes.
So if it's a condo, they could potentially make that garage into another condo dwelling upstairs? No.
No,
Nope, we're in a R2, we're in a R2 zone and the maximum density is 2 dwelling units.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because it's one lot,
Mhm.
the 2 dwelling units is the maximum density on a single lot. If you were talking multiple lots, that would allow for more density, but because this is one lot, doesn't matter that it's an acre, it's one piece, you're allowed 2 dwelling units.
And they can't subdivide that at some point?
I would say, anything is like possible, but the wetlands that are on this lot really limit the footprint that's available.
Particularly if we address wetlands.
Right.
Okay,
What Mr. Rainey is mentioning is the wetlands ordinance that the city's taken a look at, Plan Commission and Council, that may have additional restrictions.
That should be in effect by changes.
let's move on to testimonies. Pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff report and on the criteria sheets. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward that criteria or other criterion in the comprehensive plan or failure to raise an issue accompanied with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion, we've already concluded the initial evidentiary hearing, so that's a moot point. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the chair, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing as a representative, identify who they represent. Okay, is there a presentation by the applicant?
Hello, my name is Jamie Lerma. I'm representing the applicant. And my address is P.O. Box 325, Canby, Oregon. I'll start. And I think it probably would serve us if I just gave you a brief history of the project. And I mean real brief. We've been working on different iterations of developing this property for about 3 years. And there were some initial plans. I think at one point we did a pre-application conference about 3 years ago with 7 lots, where the idea was to donate some of the wetland lots as a tax thing. We boiled that down to a 5-lot application, which we then took down to a 3-lot application, which was denied based on that design accessing the homes via Hemlock Street. And that's prohibited based on a note on the plat. And so that was denied. And now we came up with a 2-lot or a 2-dwelling plan, 2-family detached home. And we almost feel like it's been in collaboration with the planning commission. We've had many hearings with them. So the nature of the conditional use permit hearing, which I was the applicant, was I felt like we all felt like we collaborated and come up with a good workable plan here that respects the wetlands and adheres to the restrictions of the code, and will provide a nice project with legal access via a boardwalk. And I'm here chiefly tonight to address the letter that came in today from Mike Bates, because he is he's a serving member of the planning commission, and has, as Steve mentioned, he does live about 300 feet away from the property. And he has recused himself twice from voting on projects on this property, including the conditional use permit application that was heard on January 25th and approved on January 25th. So we didn't want to risk having the commentary closed and then have his comments carry extra weight, because he is a serving member of the planning commission. So I want to address his letter now briefly, if I can. Then I'm going to turn it over to our project designer, Kay Orlock. You have copies. I think you have copies of the letter that he submitted, Mr. Bates.
Yes.
He's got 4 points, and I want to address each of those. Steve did a pretty good job of breaking this down, but regarding the setbacks, the subject properties are a regularly shaped lot abutting Forest Lawn Road to the west and north, and Hemlock Street to the east. And those streets are not at right angles to the subject property or each other. So as designed and as addressed by the city, the front yard for the project is considered to be Forest Lawn Road to the west. The orientation of the dwellings proposed in the underlying development is consistent with the project addressing and the orientations of the existing homes along Forest Lawn Road. And with the plat, which prohibits access to Hemlock Street. The proposed homes generally face west. And based on these elements, the front yards of the existing homes are to the west. The south property line of the subject property is already designated and serves as the established north side yard of the southern abutting property at 1603 Forest Lawn Road. So it would follow, as Steve suggested, that the shared property line would be the side yard of this property as well. In addition to that, as part of CUP 2304, the city of Cannon Beach Planning Commission specifically addressed side yard setback requirements on this site. And Steve touched on that too. We spent quite a bit of time discussing that and actually had one of our prior applications denied because we didn't meet the 5-foot side yard setback. We had to revise our plans and bring it back and meet the 5-yard side yard setback. We did that. So that issue has been reviewed and by the Planning Commission. The second item on Mr. Bates's letter talks about willow trees on the southwest corner of the property. And I think he's got the process wrong in his item number 2. No tree removal permits have been submitted for this project yet. We have submitted a tree removal and retention plan prepared by the project arborist. And the city's had that since November 28th, 2023. Tree removal permits will be submitted with the building permits, and that's just standard course. That's how it's done. So we got the cart before the horse if we're talking about us not having permits to remove trees. We're not at that stage yet. And second, willows are considered a shrub and not a tree. And I provided you with comments from the project arborist Todd Prager and Associates, as well as information from the USDA National Resource Conservation Service that specifically describes classic hooker willows as medium to large shrubs. So they're often not included on tree reports because they're not considered trees. The city arborist has a different opinion about that, then we would apply for a removal permit and go through the proper channels, like we will be doing with the other trees that we'll be requesting to remove. And item number 3, Mr. Bates states that with the removal of the willows, there is at least question regarding geologic stability of the soil. And that's his opinion. He doesn't have any special training or experience or specialized knowledge about geotechnical engineering or soils engineering or science, and nor has he conducted any testing on the property. Conversely, we have conducted testing on the property. We have a geotechnical report and supplemental report done by Earth Engineers, a well-known geotechnical engineering company. In his comments, Mr. Bates says that the geotechnical report does not address the removal of the hook willow shrubs. And that's because the geotechnical report is not intended to address removal of trees, especially on a flat site. They're addressing the suitability of the soil for construction, which they did. And the engineers' opinions and recommendations about the soil on the site requires that deep pier foundations be built, which would extend below the root structures of any trees or shrubs on the site. We're going to be drilling down 30 to 40 feet to hit bearing soil. So that would be beneath any root systems. So the stability of the soil as it relates to the tree roots is not a factor in structural stability. It's not. His fourth comment was regarding buffer zone around the northern parking, the 4 northern parking spaces. And 78030 requires some shrubbery or some fencing around the parking spaces, and we aren't averse to that. If that were a condition of approval, we would certainly meet it. Alternatively, if Design Review Board decides that buffer is more important than parking spaces, we would be willing to eliminate 2 of the parking spaces and provide that as buffer. But with that street, our intent was to allow overflow parking. That's a narrow street gravel, goes around a corner right there. So we thought that we would be serving the public interest by including extra parking. And we still feel that way, but if the buffer is more important, we can eliminate 2 spaces and that shouldn't be a concern. This project has a pending type 2 development permit application that was deemed complete on November 29th, 2023, and a conditional use permit for a boardwalk as a means of legal access to the underlying development that was approved by the Planning Commission on January 25th, 2024. As part of those applications and approvals, we have submitted to the city planning staff, planning commission, and design review board. I want to recite for you what we've submitted, and this has been like I touched on. This has been a 3-year process for us to refine this development down to these two units, the detached 2-family home, and we've got a lot of good material that's been submitted on public record that include the site plan showing the buildings, the boardwalk locations, and our compliance with wetland buffer and setback standards. Tree report by Todd Prager and Associates, geotechnical report and supplemental report by Earth Engineers, Inc., wetland delineation by Pacific Habitat Services, DSL concurrence of that delineation, and an Army Corps of Engineers jurisdictional determination, a utility plan by our civil engineer, Jason Morgan, and a conditional use application that was approved that included site plans, floor plans, which you have, for the underlying detached duplex development, boardwalk plans, including the optional railing, and a letter of support for the boardwalk from our wetland scientist. The planning commission required the submission of all of the type 2 development information be submitted to them in conjunction with the conditional use permit that they approved. So they did not want to approve a boardwalk to some unknown development. So we submitted all the information that you have to them. They based their decision to approve that conditional use permit on the underlying development that you have before you now for the single family or the 2-family detached homes. It seems like Commissioner Bates is asking you to undermine those decisions that were made by city staff and the planning commission with this letter here. I'm hoping that you don't do that. He did recuse himself twice for bias from voting on this project. And now he wants you to take his biased opinion and employ that here at the design review board level. And that just doesn't seem like the right way to do this. And so I'm asking you to judge this based on the merits of the submission that you have before you. You requested some information. We have provided that information, and our project designer, Jay Orloff, will talk to you more about that. We'll answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Jay Orloff, in business as Tolovana Design, representing Robert, the Forest Lawn Project. Thank you, members, for your time today. Welcome to the fold, Tim, and nice to finally see you, Bill, in person. I would like to first reiterate items in Mr. Bates' letter, maybe with a little more clarity. Item 1, the setbacks, I think we've spoken in depth on, and I don't really feel that we need to go any further on that. Item 2, the willow trees, I just would like to reiterate that the willow trees were addressed in the original arborist report from Todd Prager. Second section, background, second paragraph, small diameter hooker willow occupy much of the wetland, but their diameters were smaller than required to be individually inventoried. This report was included in the package today, along with another reiteration from Mr. Prager, noting that they are classified as shrubs. Item number 3, in regards to the wetlands and the soil conditions, we also provided a full geo report with the package today. And just to note that the willows in question are in a buildable area of the garage and outside of the wetland delineation. In regards to construction, again, to reiterate, Mr. Lerma's information, the foundations of the structure are deep foundation, helical pier foundation based, resting on grade beam and structural slab. We can adjust the height of that grade beam and structural slab to avoid tree roots. A preliminary excavation, hydrostatic excavation of the sites will determine if there are any root structures to be avoided as noted in Mr. Prager's report. Anything, I believe, over pneumatic excavation to locate structural roots greater than 2 inches in diameter, bridging the foundations over the roots. So we are prepared to do that with the construction method that is planned. Item number. Item number 4 in regards to parking. I'd like to go a little bit further in depth in that. Chapter 17, 78.030. A, following design requirements shall apply to off-street parking consisting of 5 or more parking spaces. We have 4, that is, should not be applicable. The landscape area is noted as a condition item number 5 within A. Again, a buffer area should not be considered because we do not have 5 or more parking spots. Continuing through chapter 17, 78.030. B, areas required off-street consisting of fewer than 5 spaces which serve uses other than single-family dwellings, modular housing, manufactured home, duplex or triplexes, again, not valid. However, item C, areas required for off-street parking associated with single-family dwelling, modular housing, manufactured homes, accessory dwelling, duplexes, limited triplexes shall comply with standards of section 1778.030A. Section 2, parking spaces must be at least 9 by 18 feet, which they are. Section 9, number of access points from adjacent public streets to the shall be limited to a minimum that will allow property to accommodate anticipated traffic. Basically, that breaks down to the width of the driveway, which is limited to 20 feet, which it is. And then finally, item 10, maneuvering space shall be provided for all lots with access to Hemlock, Sunset, and US Highway 101. We are not in that zone, so that should not be applicable. However, just to note, we are doing a 90-degree parking stall, which by parking minimum design requirements requires 22'6" for an aisleway width. We are providing 24. So even if that was a condition, we have exceeded the requirements. Any questions on?
You added the extra 2 feet to the garage.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask why you went 24 rather than the 22, which was the minimum requirement?
That's the 24 is the minimum requirement for the secondary parking to the north.
Okay.
Now, the way it just worked out, it was 22 feet.
Okay.
The way we laid it out. That has nothing to do with the garage. Required parking for the units are 2 for each unit. 2 in the garage, 2 in the driveway, additional parking so that we don't have any street issues to the north. If there are any more questions about responses to Mr. Bates, I'd happily answer those. Otherwise, I'd like to move on to the previous meeting requests. At our last meeting, I did walk through the design and concept that we provided to you. I'd like to sort of just field out the questions that you had asked, answer to those first, and then if you would like, I could walk through the application again. First thing that was requested was arborist and geo report. We provided that. That's in your packet. Second was the request for the bridge drawings, which have been approved by the CUP and the planning board. Those are in the drawings. If you have any questions for those, I'd be happy to answer that as well. Third was a request to change on the stone for the elevations of the 2 buildings. We took that in consideration and provided additional revisions to the elevation showing a basalt, rough cut basalt, similar to what is on the lodges at Cannon Beach. So we were happily to make that revision as requested. And the big item would be the landscape plan and the replanting for the temporary access on Hemlock. And you guys should have the landscape plan in your package. I can walk through that with you right now. The concept of this is walking through paths through the forest. So we've utilized a lot of ferns and natural vegetation that is on the existing site, mostly hooker willows, some black honeysuckles, western swords, deer ferns, and Pacific silverweed. The low-lying Pacific silverweed you'll find in around the garage and around some of the structures themselves, along with the deer ferns and western sword ferns. The western sword ferns are a little bit larger, so I was going to buffer the garage on the south elevation. You can see those in the star pattern. There is to note that in our replanting, we are including 5 Sitka spruces in various locations as advised by our arborist. We have 3 on the west side of the property, 1 in the middle of the property, and then 2 on the Hemlock side of the property. If you'd like me to stand up and sort of walk through it, I can point out stuff if that would assist. Just please ask.
The temporary access is.
Yeah. Yeah. So this block right here is a temporary access
Okay,
off of Hemlock, because we cannot, otherwise we're coming
right.
wide over
Right.
60-ton excavator and dump truck. Not gonna happen. So this would be our temporary access. It'll be laid down with wood chips, steel plates, and then those will be removed and we'll replant per the CUP and planning board's request. Here is where we're gonna be using those willows. This whole area right now is all willows, just well overgrown. So we'll replace those willows. Here's one of the Sitka spruces. Here's a second Sitka spruce. These are our honeysuckles and some of our western swords. So I'm not looking to hide it. I'm just, buffering it, returning to what it was. And these buffer areas are deer ferns. Again, another couple honeysuckles. This is our low-lying flowering plants, our deer ferns, and also a couple more ferns around the landscape around the house itself. And then here's our walkway. This is our walkway, which is approved through our CUP. You have the drawings in there. Our 5-foot buffer, our 5-foot setback, and then our western swords to buffer the house, another Sitka spruce, Sitka spruce, Sitka spruce. And then some low-lying Pacific wildflower, a couple honeysuckles, and then two additional the willows up there. So that, again, gravel path, looking to sort of like a cut through the existing forest, as if we were walking through a path.
What would it look like if you did do some buffer where that parking pad was? You've got 4 spots there now and your garage is set up for single car, the north and the south residents. So if you did do a buffer on that parking pad, what do you anticipate that looking like?
We'd probably throw in some more honeysuckle around the edge of it, really. Just let it naturally take, all the honeysuckles take over, they get really large. It already has honeysuckles in the wetland area, so I don't know how much we'd be doing more for the buffer. This is the interior line is our field line of the wetland. The secondary line is our 5-foot buffer. And I took in consideration of that around the houses with excavation as well, is that I held the houses off an additional 24 inches off that 5-foot buffer. So I'm, taking consideration what we're doing up there, not just the placement of the structures when they're there, but also digging it out. So thinking about that as well.
So that would be a consideration to do a buffer at the parking
Yeah,
pad?
I'm sure the owners would be open to it. Like I say, I just plant more willows out there, or pull out, transplant what because that would be the thickest, most dense vegetation put up there. Other than maybe the black honeysuckles. They're really nice plants too and have nice flowers, and so they provide some screening too. But again, this is so dense within here. I don't even think elk can navigate it. So adding more Hooker Willows, I don't know if that'd be really be an extension of the point where they would probably eventually creep into the parking area buffer themselves.
Mhm.
So,
Thank you.
yep. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to ask on the landscaping, or if you'd like me to walk through the design and materials again with you, I'd be happy to do that as well. But other than,
Things on your boardwalk,
Mhm.
and the beams, I think I read somewhere where you were planning on chicken wire as well.
no,
Okay, good.
no, those are, no, absolutely not.
Sorry.
No. No, you'll never see me use chicken wire anywhere. We're trying to keep, we have to maintain a certain, it's all PT framing, so we're gonna be able to get it down low. I don't want to elevate it in any way. The two end pieces will have helical piers in them, so they're going to be solid foundation. And then we'll just span between them. The reason why we included a guardrail option is depending if our building official will require it for ADA reasons or anything beyond that. It is not greater than 30 inches above grade, so we are not required by code to have a guardrail.
Right.
But it's just as an option. I wanted to make sure that everyone knew what it would be if we did have it there.
So is the plan to not provide it?
At this point is not to provide it unless requested by building official. Because he would be the one making the decision on that as a building Oregon residential structural code.
Do we have any idea if that would be a requirement?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't want to get it, but I think what they did was they just wanted to make sure that everyone knew with or without what it looked like.
I think you have to be 30 inches above grade.
Yeah.
That is the code. Anything over 30 inches must have a guard at least of 36 inches. But we will not be 30 inches above existing grade. So.
Why is your driveway curved to the north?
Because I'm following the slope of the existing grade there. Rather than having to cut heavily into 41, 42, and 43. If I curve it, I probably will not need any retaining along that contour.
Okay.
And that is in the right of way. I don't want to have to push anything else in there. I do have to have some retaining on the north side just because it drops off over there. So, and that's only going to be a foot and a half of probably a single run of basalt stone.
Okay. You,
Any other questions you might have?
okay. Thank you.
I would like to, if possible, I'd like the opportunity to respond to any further comments that you might have after the public testimony is closed.
All right.
Thank you.
Presentation by any other proponents? Presentation by any opponents? Jan?
Jan Siebert Warmond, P.O. Box 778, Cannon Beach. Dear Design Review Board members, regarding DRB number 24-03, I'm still very concerned if more than one house can be allowed to be built on one Cannon Beach wetland lot of record. How is this following our municipal code and its intended goal of the protection of our Cannon Beach wetlands? Again, I ask, how is a development with 3 buildings considered the same as the one house our code allows on a wetland lot of record? Why is an asphalt driveway rather than gravel needed here? Aren't impervious surfaces known for contributing to drainage problems? Where are the bioswale/dry well drawings/plans in this application? Shouldn't they be included in this DRB application when they were deemed critical conditions by the planning commission when they made their decision? Are all of the trees measuring 6 inches or more at DBH, diameter at breast height, indicated on this plan in the application? Has our city arborist weighed in on the trees in this application in its present form? If not, why not? In this situation, it is essential that he give his unbiased professional advice rather than just including the advice plans of the developer's arborist. Where is the map of the wetland delineation in this DRB application? Is that not pertinent to the site plan determination? I could not find it. How can this application be complete without it? Please make absolutely sure that all of the setbacks on this application are appropriate. They seem to me complicated and confusing. Does there need to be more of a geological survey done where we are now told that the buildings are desired to be located by the developer? It seems with the soils on this wetland lot of record, a follow-up study would be part of the complete application. I have not yet seen one. Please make sure to see that the privacy concern in criteria O in the architectural design evaluation is taken care of. Would an approved fence help the next door neighbor's situation? Looking at the proposed excess of parking on Forest Lawn Road, I was not able to find any plans for landscaping there, which I believe are supposed to be part of the application. Please make sure they are appropriately designated and followed, and that they protect the wetland lot of record. And if they're not needed, please take them away, as they said that they would do, take away 2 of them. With all of these concerns, and they are many, I ask you to apply our zoning ordinance as it is written. Please take the time you need to look into these concerns in order to make the most responsible decision you can. I ask you to continue and ultimately to deny this application. Please follow our Cannon Beach Municipal Code. Thank you.
I think it's easier to go first because now I've got notes all over my notes, But anyway, design review board members.
Are,
Pardon?
please identify.
I'm going to, I'm gonna stay with my speech here. Thank you for your consideration of the project. My name is Rosie Dorsey. I am the owner of 1603 Forest Lawn Road, the property that's adjacent to the property you're discussing. My home was constructed in
Mailing address.
16, my mailing address?
Mailing address, yeah.
I have a mailing address in Cannon Beach. Now it's P.O. Box 524, Cannon Beach. So the home was constructed in 2005. So I've been here for about 20 years. But this is the first time I've actually been able to spend some extended time in the home because it's been rented and I've been teaching. So it is true, though, that the elk do hang out back there in that property. And I counted 32 the other day in the field, Ryan and Stephanie's field next to me. So, but accept my apologies in advance because I've never approached a design review board before. So if I when I'm asking or have questions or whatever, I hope it's consistent with what you do. And I just have some questions, and I think a lot of it maybe has been covered, especially, I read Mr. Bates's letter, so, but there's still some, I'm a little confused about the setbacks. Because if I was reading, like, for example, here, if I'm reading right here in the code, you know, it would identify that there has to be a front and a rear and a side yard. And then if the front yards are all facing Forest Lawn, would not the front yard be the side yard that's in my backyard? So I have setbacks that are 15 feet, my front yard, and the 5-foot setback on each side. And then, but I looked at my original house plans and I have a 15-foot setback from my backyard, and I have a very strangely shaped lot, as you can tell. So there's just a lot of people that keep asking me the question about the setbacks, and the explanations of them. So I just want to be sure everybody's comfortable with the fact that I guess I have a side yard that goes not just along my side, but along the back, and then also along the side of Ryan and Stephanie Snyder's property as well. So we just want to be sure that I'm clear on those setbacks. And then I have a few questions about the geological report. Well, when Mr. Bates talks a little bit about the willows and the geological stability, I have long been concerned and referenced my concern about, and it's in all these letters to the city, but about the security of my own foundation and whether my own home is going to be safe. And I've had, you know, other people tell me to be careful about when trees are taken out and shrubs are around the property, just to make sure that my own foundation and everything is safe. And we don't joke around about it, but we just want to be sure my home doesn't sink. So I was cross-referencing some of the Cannon Beach codes. It's the first time I've done anything quite like that. So I'm cross-referencing these codes, and it seems that the design review board has to specifically sort of take an interest in letter I, which is the geologic or soils engineering study. But the thing is, the study that you have is from 2022. And so if we look at that study, they'll tell you, and I can read from it just a few things I picked out, but they talk about only going around the perimeter of the property and doing their study on the soil and everything had to do on the perimeter of the property. They didn't actually go into the property. There weren't any structural designs for it. And so in 2022, that's what you have, and that's what I've been working with. But they have some pretty specific suggestions in those studies, and that they make me nervous because I'm the adjacent house. I'm a little bit lower, and I want to be sure that when all this is being constructed, my home is okay. So if we look, like it says the design review board, if we look at, give me a second here. We look at the standards for the R2 zone, 17.14.040. It says for you, the geologic or soils engineering study is required 17.50. So then I thought, okay, I'll go find that one. And when I pulled that up, and maybe I've misinterpreted it, but there's people here who can help me out. It says that, you know, these are the reports and the plans that are kind of required. And the report, if I look at 17.50040, it says the report should discuss the engineering feasibility of the development. But your engineering report and the soil report doesn't have any of that because they didn't do that at the time. And so again, it makes me a little nervous, but it says it should have findings and conclusions for the design and location of the structures, the design and location of roads and location of utilities and grading practices, and including excavation and filling, stormwater management, which is interesting because the stormwater management suggestions in the geological plan is different than what the Planning Commission was suggesting. So there's stormwater management stuff and vegetation retrieval, but then it says the geologic site investigation report indicates there's not a hazard to the use proposed on the site or to the properties in the vicinity. And so I'm not sure if that's in that report because it's 85 pages and it's not I was an English teacher, not science, but I don't know if there's anything in that geologic report that protects my property, but I am under the impression that once this gets approved here, then it's approved and we can move forward. And then there are not really a lot of checks and balances to see. They suggest that the arborist is on site and that the engineers are on site when all of this is constructed. But how are we sure that they're going to be following up on that? So I'm just, again, that's kind of like, are we sure that all of the surrounding properties are going to be safe in this construction project? Because it's a really vulnerable piece of property. They say that there's surface water, maybe just a foot down. So, and that drilling could be up to 50 feet. So from my point of view, those sound kind of shocking. Then I think that was kind of a big one really for me, was just the engineering and the geological suggestions. And to be sure that we already talked about the bridge and the ADA part. And then they're like, for example, there's a retaining wall. And that maybe Jay, there's like a retaining wall now against my property line that wasn't there a month or two ago. And then Ryan's property line, but we also have two huge trees that are there. And I don't know where those trees are factoring in. Should I be concerned about that? I'm not sure, but the engineering reports say that if there's retaining walls, that they really need to be able to come back and take care of those things. So these are just like smaller, I don't think they're small issues, but I just think that there are a lot of questions. There's still a lot of questions that we have about this, and can we really be certain that the setbacks are really correct and that the engineering, we can make our decisions based on the engineering reports that are 2 years old. So, and then I did want to point out, just before I forget, because it is such a huge report that I read a few times, but they do say that this is just a preliminary report and that they would want to come back and redo it when they had plans, like building plans. And obviously they don't have to do a super deep one, with all the plans and go very, very in depth, but it sounds to me from these reports that they would want to come back with the design plans and make sure that what is going to be built on that property is actually feasible. So thank you very much. That's sort of what I put together, and I crossed out all sorts of things that were already covered. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, but this is not my area of expertise. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any additional staff report?
We have one more. We have one person on Zoom. Dana?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Dana Cardwell, P.O. Box 1305, Cannon Beach. I would like to speak to you tonight. After listening to your proceedings, I think I come from it with a slightly different view than perhaps what was presented by Mr. Lerma. As he did mention, this has been a 3-year, I would call it a debacle. It's been a large issue here in the community, and particularly with those of us who live along Forest Lawn. It did start off as a proposed 8-home project with a total disregard of the wetland. And it was only through community and neighbor involvement and appeal and multiple objections that we got to where we are now. And yes, I'm very thankful we are where we are now, but it was not without a lot of time and effort and thoughtfulness on the parts of the neighbors, the community, and the Planning Commission, who I highly commend for all of their time and effort put into this. So I do object to Mr. Lerma's comments that, he's worked hand in hand with the Planning Commission and that, they're just bumping along all rosy and happy. That has not been the history of this. It has been very contentious. And it has only been kept in check by those members of the community who have just been so gracious in speaking out and helping keep this somewhat within what is acceptable under the code. So with that bit of history, then I would like to give my thoughts as, you know, where we are now and some thoughts for the design review board to consider. My main thought is when it comes to that parking pad. Forest Lawn has notoriously been heavily used as parking by the day tourists who come. We're right here next to the stairway down to the rock. It got so bad that the city spent, you know, money to put up signs last year, no parking. You know, the whole street is now no parking, which has been great. It's been wonderful for those of us who live here. So now to see, you know, a parking pad that's going to provide, you know, what's going to appear to that day tripper as free parking is, you know, a bit unsettling. So I would like to take Mr. Lerma up on his offer of reducing that parking pad down to 2 spaces. There are 2 spaces in the garage, 2 spaces on a parking pad seems reasonable. I would also like to ask that you consider making that a permeable surface since it is so close to the wetland. Put it gravel. That's in check with what the other houses along Forest Lawn have. We all have this same strip. That's kind of this nebulous strip. None of us know what it is. We're not sure if it's city owned, if we own it, but for the most part along Forest Lawn, it's gravel. We know utilities run through there. So I would ask that this parking pad not be paved and be permeable. I would also ask that, you know, some signage be put up noting that it's private parking and it's private parking for the duplexes that are in the proposed development. And then I'm just checking my notes here. And then I also like the idea that was proposed to provide some more landscaping, some more buffer landscaping to make that parking pad not stand out quite so much and not be such an attractant for those just coming in as tourists for the day. Then on a related note, the setbacks, I'm still confused. I don't quite get it. So I would ask the design review board to make a formal finding, just delineating and saying, this is a side yard, this is a front yard, and this is a backyard. Put it in writing so everybody knows, so there's a decision there. And so, you know, setbacks can be calculated from that, but a formal decision would be great help to everybody. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate all the effort you put into this. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
I didn't know if we go back to the proponent, if there's no more opponents. I think we go back to the proponents one more time.
You go back to the applicant.
Or I'm sorry, the applicant.
Well, is there additional staff comment?
No, we're here to answer any questions you may as you deliberate.
Does the applicant or proponents wish to make any additional statements?
Yes, please.
A couple items to note. In the packet is the survey and wetland delineation. It is included in there. And just to note that the wetland delineation was approved by DSL and Army Corps of Engineers already. In response to the elk are in the open area, not in the wetlands. That we all know that the elk hang out in Ryan Snyder's property in that open area. I can't say I've ever seen them directly in the thick of the wetlands. In a comment to geological, there were test pits dug and are included in the geological report. Those were dug at 33 to 55 feet by auger and also at 5 feet with an additional 8-foot probe by hand. In a commentary about the retaining wall on the southeast side of the property, our slabs are set at 43. The top of grade there is at 44. So this is not going to be a large retaining wall, nothing structurally engineered. In fact, most retaining walls are no longer required by code to be structurally engineered, believe it or not. But this, we are talking a basalt, natural stone basalt retaining. In response to our last commentary, owner would be open to gravel paved concession for the additional parking and providing signage. We could include that as a condition of approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, was I? The last opponent seemed to indicate there was a total of 6 parking spots. I think there's 4, is that?
Well, there's 4 in the additional spaces, yes. The northern parking area has 4 spots.
Right.
Garage provides 2, driveway can provide 2 as well.
Okay.
So we're looking at runoff from houses. But again, owner has conceded that they would be, owner representative would allow, again, gravel rather than hardscape permeable, and signage noting that this is private parking, towed at owner's expense.
Would you take 1 ear off the plan or 2 spaces and still have the T?
We will let that be decided upon your decision. Right now, we would like to have the 4 spots.
Steve, with regard to the question on the determination of what's a side yard, that's settled by the planning commission report, is it not?
The plan commission acted on the bridge that indicated that was a side, and it's staff's interpretation that that whole section, like we talked about on the south end, is an interior side lot line.
So in your mind, is this settled?
In my mind, they're meeting the requirements. Otherwise, we'd be telling you that they would need a variance.
The question is that
Can't say anything.
the 2 separate houses has been put to bed. And the side yard setback is resolved. Anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, they only have one side yard.
Yeah.
The rest are all 15-foot setback.
Okay,
Thank you.
so. Guess we'll close the public hearing and move to consideration. As far as the site plan goes, we would have to include all of the conditions by the planning commission at a minimum.
Yeah, and the comment I would say on that, you certainly could, but they're already there. So I would say
list them individually.
you're comfortable, or that's there, but anything in addition, if, for example, you went permeable, gravel, you added anything else, those would be the types of things that we'd want to include in the conditions of approval, should you vote that way.
That was one question I was gonna ask, was gravel. That was my only.
That would be an easy one.
Yeah.
To be permeable.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to reduce the parking to 2.
On the question of permeability, can we not specify gravel, but just specify permeable? There's other approaches than gravel.
Sure.
Like those.
Grasscrete.
Those, yeah, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
Gravel was messy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe they want it to match the whole neighborhood too. I've already forgotten her name. Or wait, oh, maybe it was the caller. The caller, yeah, that said everybody has gravel, so maybe,
If we say permeable, that doesn't preclude gravel.
Yeah, but we're also design review board, so we're trying to keep it design sense. So, I mean, I don't know if she said that everybody has a similar, not monotony, but also. So, yeah.
Care to hazard a motion on.
Gosh.
Approving the site plan with conditions.
Oh, what about the parking, the number of parking?
Why do you want it
spaces?
reduced?
Well, they've got 2 in the garage.
But there's 2 residences. So that means each person has just 1 car.
I think requirements are 2 parking spaces, right?
Yeah, yeah.
One is the garage and one would be the parking pad.
Yeah.
So they have 6, but they're only required 4.
So they can't have visitors?
Pardon me?
They can't have visitors? Like a little,
Oh, I'm not saying that.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to keep Forest Lawn somewhat Forest Lawn
Uh-huh.
because it's not Forest Lawn anymore once this project goes. And that's where I hope that this ends the development of that area by approving this project. And so I guess in my mind, I'm just trying to preserve the character of Forest Lawn as much as possible. And by reducing a couple of parking spaces, you know, and the more parking spaces, the more enforcement to me. You know, if you've got 4, and it's empty, I think there's people that are just gonna, I'm going to the beach and I'm parking here.
Well, that's the whole town though.
Right.
That's right.
There's no parking on that street, right?
Yeah, there's no parking on that street.
Well, no, there is. There's parking on that street. At 1616 Forest Lawn, I mean, you can park across the street. There's little pull-out
Don't
areas.
tell people, no, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure it's well known. So that's where I, you know, to increase any look of parking to me is what I'm discuss here. And if we have a way of preserving Forest Lawn at all for the people that are gonna be neighbors, that we do that.
What did typically the other houses have parking?
I think they just park in front of their homes is what it is. You know, at 1616, I've seen as many as 6 cars, you know, pulled in there. So it's just kind of find your spot
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, I'm just like,
off
oh,
the
pretend
street.
you have a dinner guest. Where do they park? Over on,
They can park
wherever.
probably where there's an area
Okay.
to pull out.
just trying to think.
Yeah.
Forward
well,
here.
I'm just trying to, appease, compromise everybody's position.
I'm sympathetic to Anita's point of view. And I'm sort of in the camp that says, I'm fine not building a whole lot more parking, period. Cannon Beach. That's a bigger issue, but
We need a shuttle.
yeah.
So what do we do, Bill? How do we motion that approval with condition or?
So it sounds like that's where you're headed, you know, it sounds like you still, I'm not certain you've come to a resolution of the parking thing. Here a consensus, but you can have further discussion, see if you can come to sort of a consensus, but eventually a motion to, approve, that's where you're headed, done with the issues that have come up. So.
Yeah, I could toss out a couple and you guys can do with it what you want. As far as if you are looking at the site plan, you could say, for example, approve with the conditions that the parking area is limited to 2 spaces that will be gravel or permeable. Is a way of doing it if that's what you're looking at, but I think that's would be a reasonable way of listing that condition if you so choose.
Okay.
Could we compromise and do 3 spaces?
No.
And you can, and it's gonna be voted, so you can vote on, so.
Okay, can I entertain a motion? You approve the site plan with the condition of 2 spaces, parking and permeable surface.
I so move.
Second.
And just to clarify, when you say 2 spaces, Chair, just to clarify, when you say 2 spaces, that's at the northern parking lot.
Right, yeah, the
right
satellite parking.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Fine.
Any opposed?
Sure.
Thank you. Architectural design.
I make a motion to approve the architectural design.
Seconded.
Any additional discussion there? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Landscaping. Seems a little more controversial. One thing I'd like to clarify with the landscaping, this packet that we got today has about 3 different arborist reports versions in it. What I think is the most recent one indicates that they're only going to remove 5 trees and replace 7. Whereas some of the earlier ones had considerably more tree removals. I think we need to somehow specify that we're using the 5 tree removal plan.
You know,
Most recent.
Most recent, yes.
If we want, we could always ask the applicant, what's the last one, or ask the questions if you have of them. If you're looking for the specific one, that we're looking at, unless you guys don't need to ask them, but, we could, that's a fair question to ask if you want.
I'm a little bit confused by one other thing, and maybe I will ask him to comment on it. You were talking about replacing or adding 4 or 5 Sitka spruces. Is that in addition to the 7 trees that are shown in the arborist report?
There are 7 total being replaced, period.
Are they all Sitka spruces?
Yes.
Some of them are short pine.
I'm looking at the report right now.
Is that the January 11th?
January 11th report, yeah. 31 trees to be retained, 7 trees to be replanted. Back to, so we return to the 38 trees on site.
Does say new trees, we plan on subject lot 7 trees, parentheses, native short pine, close parentheses.
So one of the things, if you wanted, you could refer to the January 11th, 2024 Todd Prager and Associates report. If you'd like, just as a condition, that would be reasonable. Jay, is that the right one? January 11th, correct?
And I apologize, it does note Sitka, short pine.
Right.
I misrepresented that, I apologize.
So I mean, if you wanted to get that specific, you could refer to that particular letter from the arborist. And then not only that, there will be at building permit, if there are trees to be removed, they'll still have to go through the tree removal permit process and things like that. And they would be submitting applications for that as well when they do what they're talking about replacing.
For the purposes of DRB, we're called on to look at the landscape plan,
Right.
so approving subject to that particular report would make sense.
Are there any protections in place that during this construction, say a dump truck accidentally backs up into a tree and it falls over?
Yes, in the arborist report, there is a tree protection zone within there, that is set by the arborist. Typically, that is the drip edge of the tree. It says the tree protection zone.
They put a fence.
Right.
And that's usually up with, 4-foot bright orange fencing.
Yeah.
And like I noted, it is in that original arborist report for preservation.
All the truck drivers are aware of that.
They'll be running over it if they aren't.
Some 20-year-old.
Yeah, no,
You seen our firemen?
I apologize for the sick guy. My last project was all sick spruces. So, but yes, they clearly identify where the tree protection zone is.
But what would happen when a tree does get accidentally knocked down?
I was replacing it. Immediately.
Name bolt.
But I think there's gonna be more red damage to the vehicle looking at those trees that are out there.
And I just, remember the planning commission was very concerned about the temporary access being returned to. So I'm assuming that you're aware of that and would.
Oh, yes, and that was taken into consideration with our replanting, and that's why I have those willows and the honeysuckles up in that area.
Thank you.
Just so we don't miss those willows. You're on the site, and if some of those willows are over 4.5 inches or over 6 inches at 4.5 feet, he would
take a look at the tree removal
Yeah.
permit and then would make recommendations at that point in time.
Will that happen?
Yes. And so basically what happens is there's a removal, those permits are reviewed at the time of building permit issuance.
I thought we heard testimony earlier that these willows are not typically subject to the tree removal permit process because they're not trees or not classified as trees. Am I confused on that?
I would probably defer to the arborist at that time.
Our code is fairly simple. It's just any plant over 4.5. At 4.5 feet is over 6 inches.
Has the city arborist reviewed any of this?
Not at this point in time, because they typically come out at the time of the tree removal permit.
So we're protected by that process, which is yet to come.
Right.
Okay. So where are we at?
Somebody has to approve the landscape design.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
Motion of some sort.
And the date of, just in case anyone wants to refer to, it's the Todd Prager and Associates, and it's January 11th, 2024.
I move to approve the landscape plan incorporating as governing Todd Prager and Associates report of January 11th, 2024.
A second.
Any other conditions we need?
Sorry.
The approval by the city arborist doesn't have to be specified as a condition.
That takes place as part of that tree removal permit process.
Okay, and we don't have to specify that there is a tree removal permit.
Nope. If you'd like, you certainly can. It definitely will happen, but if you feel more comfortable doing that, you could say that the city arborist will review at the time of the tree removal permit if you so choose, but that's going to happen regardless.
We'll second the motion.
I already did.
Motion was with only condition being. Was the condition?
Just January 11th, 2024.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I think it's done.
Okay.
We have one more item. Quasi judicial hearing regarding DRB 24-04. Construction on behalf of Tolovana Sands condominiums, application for exterior alterations to existing buildings. Property located at 160 East Susla. Consists of multiple owners with homeowners association and is in a residential motel zone. Application will be reviewed with the criteria of municipal code chapter 1744. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of design review to hear this matter at this time? Does any member of the commission believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has the commission had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit?
Oh, I haven't gone on it, but I've been in the area.
On Google.
It's like been near it.
I Google mapped it as well, but I don't.
Okay, staff report, please.
The proposed project is a replacement of exterior siding at the Tolovana Sands condominiums at 160 East Sayuzaw Street. The applicant intends to replace the existing cedar shake siding with a hardy plank product. No changes to site design or landscaping are proposed as part of this application. And as such, the architectural design evaluation criteria are the only ones to be considered. The staff comment on those criteria are that the applicant proposes to remove the existing cedar shake siding and replace it with the new hardy plank lap siding. The roof will also be reshingled with have a wood shake look as per the manufacturer's specifications. Renders of the proposed modifications are included as exhibit A2, and the no structural changes are proposed as part of the application. The renderings that were provided to the city with the application were black and white photocopies. No information about color has been provided. However, the applicant is here with us. And that concludes the staff report.
Because my first reaction was, is it gonna be black?
Yeah, and it should be, everyone should know that the person who had dropped them off was made well aware that we would prefer to have color, so everyone knew what they were referring to. So it wasn't as though that wasn't asked for.
Okay.
Do we know the manufacturer of the roofing shingle? Is that like a Da Vinci?
I believe the applicant
Line,
should be able to address.
line HD.
Maybe, I wonder, maybe we should just
Yeah, continue.
start the process. And maybe go that way. I don't mean to, but I think we can do some deliberations afterwards if needed.
Okay. Any additional correspondence?
No, there's been no correspondence on this application.
Okay. All for public testimony. Pertinent criteria to be considered or noted, staff reports listed in the criteria sheets. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward that criteria. Failure to raise an issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to conclusion of evidentiary hearing, any participant may request opportunity to present additional information. Continuance. Persons who testify shall receive recognition, state their full name and mailing address. And if appearing in representative capacity, identify whom they represented. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes.
Please. Sorry to make you wait through all that.
Hey, man, I'm gonna tell you right now, it was educational and respect to you guys. I didn't realize this was gonna, that there was so much going on with this. So, I'm a little bit of a novice. My name is Brian Mullen. I'm with WRB Construction. My mailing address for my business is 12705 Southwest Herman Road in Tualatin, Oregon, in 7062. I represent the HOA and the condos and the contractor of record that submitted the application. Apologize for the renderings being black and white. Delivered to you by one of my employees. I have no idea why he would try to furnish you guys with color copies, and I did not know if you didn't have them. I apologize for that. Also didn't build a cool little board. Made it. So I'm already off to a bad start. So sorry about that. If you look at the horribly visible renderings, you can see their shades of dark and darker. But they're actually a light gray, a light neutral gray, and a dark neutral gray. The building does have some nice architectural features to where it's broken up. So, oh, did you go back to it? Yeah, so I will call those the gables. The gables would be like a darker gray, and some of those little pop outs would be a darker gray, and all the trim would be white. And I can certainly get you guys the color codes from that and send those in. Right now, the issue with this property is it is had deferred maintenance for way too long, and it is in disrepair. The genesis of the project was there was a lot of dry rot on some of the trim. So we went over there in a repair capacity to repair some of the dry rotted trim. And once we started removing some of the exterior finishes, it was evident that there was some construction defects in the flashing design of the roof and the age of the siding. Water is just getting behind this, and there's rotted plywood and stuff. So we've covered everything up. We put it on pause and talked to the owners about, hey, if you look at this through a repair lens, it's going to be patchy here, it's going to be very expensive to kind of piecemeal this out. And so they all agreed that it was time to refresh the exterior and get a new building envelope for the longevity of the building. We do anticipate that there's going to be structural damages that they're going to have to come inspect. There's definitely rotted plywood and other things. Really would like to move forward with this as quickly as we can, just to protect the building. This has been on pause for a while now. I had no idea that this process was so involved. I understand that you guys are trying to keep the aesthetics of your municipality and your community, cohesive and what I would say is, I don't even know if anybody knows where this thing is. Everybody that tries to go there is like, where is this place? It's not visible from the street. Not all the other buildings, but 85–90% of the buildings around it all have lap siding, plank siding. So there isn't a lot of cedar shake in that area any longer. And this is a great product that these people can afford. We think it's going to look lovely. I certainly wish I could have provided some better color choice. Apologize about that, but that's the basic gist. Did you guys have questions about the shingles? You guys located that. It's a Timberline HDZ, and it is it's a really nice looking modern architectural shingle that has kind of a wood shake look to it. Very nice.
But I'm sure there's an asphalt composite base.
I think it's but I mean, I think they used to call it asphalt base. I think it's fiber mesh. Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the new evolution in that. So that's the basic gist. I feel. I don't know.
The hardy plank siding actually textured to look like shake.
Cedar mill. Yeah, it's got like a wood embossed grain to it.
Just flat.
No. So it
This
mimics the look of,
picture, is this existing now?
that's the existing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it'll be the same exposure, lap size of the shake. So, and it'll have as much as you can, the wood appearance. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen what this fiber cement looks like. So, and we just want to get a nice neutral color. If you guys have any issue with the color, that you wanted to revisit later, I would only ask you guys to consider letting us move forward with the construction element. We're not gonna be able to meet for at least a month anyway, or until we get a little bit better weather. And the product comes pre-primed, so it looks very uniform and decent. So if you guys want to get a better look at the colors later, I'm just concerned about this property incurring more damage and becoming more cost prohibitive to these people, as it stands now. So I graciously appreciate your guys' time and consideration today. I can, of course, answer any questions you may have, but that's about all I have to say.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
You show a lot of the siding, but you don't show anything with regards to the decks and the posts and the things like that that are on there. So your drawings, that you have just show the siding. What are you guys doing to the decks?
I'm not doing anything to the decks.
So the decks are gonna look exactly the same?
The decks are
Same color? You're not staining to match or anything?
The decks, I think the decks are already been stained and they look, that might be,
They're gonna look like that after you put your stuff up?
I can't see that.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's an old picture, right? And the decks, if you go look at them now, they're all the handrails are stained like a wood color, like a darker color.
So how are you doing that with the grays? You're just gonna leave it?
You think?
You're gonna leave the wood stain as is and not try to match the decks with the rest of the gray?
Yeah, I think it'll look nice.
Okay.
You can have
That's
this,
just something to be aware of.
you want this back or?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Are the trim boards all already product as well?
They are. Yep, everything will be uniform. I imagine that if you guys have an issue with the deck color that they may not have, they may be willing to look at that. We think it's gonna look pretty nice. It is.
Siding is gonna be gray.
Well, I mean, that's what it's difficult. I mean, I'm sure you guys can relate, getting everybody to agree on one thing. So the owners kind of bandied some stuff about, but I'm sure that they'd be open to maybe going with a neutral, couple different shades of brown if that matched the decks better or whatever like that. I don't think they thought the gray would look nice. It's a nice look. And it looks great with the white trim. So, but like I said, I don't think the color is the main concern for these owners is getting their buildings back functioning and being protected. Like I said, they'd probably be open to rediscussing the colors, if that was something you felt necessary.
Can I make a comment? One of the things that we did with the Cannon Beach Conference Center was we got some drawings that showed what it is and what it's gonna be. I don't know what that is right now.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, I personally don't have a comfort level. And if I was to make a recommendation, you guys can obviously do what you want, but I would think we would want at a minimum something to go off of. So we have the specific specs as to what we're approving. I know the owners and the project needs to, get done and don't want to delay it, but this is all a conversation we had with the person dropping it off, letting them know that this was going to be a concern when it came here. I don't feel comfortable not knowing what the colors are And I would recommend continuing it until we had something. Other than that, I would, if anyone has any other comments about the design in and of itself, as far as thoughts or ideas, now would be a great time. But I just don't think we have enough here to act on it.
I absolutely agree.
I think that, oh, sorry, somebody going, oh, it's okay. I think that we're all gonna have a problem with the hardy board. We're like pretty hardcore shingles here, so,
Certainly a lot of it in the city.
what?
There's certainly a lot of it around, especially.
Yeah, I mean, that's happens, but,
10 acres of it for the conference.
it's already that way though.
Yeah.
That's already been decided by different DRB. So,
The problem with shingles is it's insanely expensive.
yeah,
Right.
we're not supposed to actually consider cost,
But
considering design.
yeah.
It's so out of reach now.
And I think the other thing is, I know like with the conference center, they were using like hardy, it might not be per se the shingles, but it had a feel or a design of a shingle or the cedar shape.
There's a relatively new house on Laurel, corner of Sixth and Laurel, opposite ex-councilor Risley's house, that is a hardy but shingle product that looks really nice, I think.
So I think if that's something that the board may be expecting, I think it's a great time to let the applicant know that if they come back with something like that, you're more apt to approve it compared to all hardy. I don't know if that's comments that I would at least make so that and you come back with something that's got an opportunity to be approved instead of coming here and doing the same thing again next time.
Yeah. I mean, and then it already looks like it's in like a community that's all shingled. So this would be the one that's like,
That's the only building, all the buildings you're looking at are all this project. Everything surrounding it has hardy plank siding on it. And this isn't visible from really anywhere until you actually get up there.
And the board you're selecting is fire resistant as well.
Yeah.
That's so important here.
Yeah, and the thing is these owners are trying their best to make sure they have the funds to do this. And you have no way of knowing just how much underlying damage has been done to these buildings. So that could skyrocket their price, and I guess cost isn't a consideration that you guys are.
oh, we think about it, but like,
I mean, but what he was saying, the shake is 3 times more expensive than the hardy plank. And I completely concur. If you were putting a nice little surf shop downtown next to all your guys' lovely shakes, there would be no question that you could just throw a hardy plank building in there. The thing about hardy plank is it's a great product for longevity, for maintenance, for durability, for fireproofing. There's so many things for impact resistant that make it a superior product for these people.
well, one of the things we did at that old building down at the conference center was like, oh, the non-visible sides, loud plank, and then the visible. So I think we have to actually like see it. I couldn't figure out exactly what to look at.
Hardy board has come a long way too. It was not good
I mean,
15 years ago.
yeah, I mean, yeah, if what you were saying, if there's that hardy sink or
Yeah, it looks amazingly good and it is cementatious material.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we need like actual color decision, like, yeah, just do that. And usually that's like a little like color call out, like Sherwin-Williams, one or a Pantone.
So what would be the next step in getting you guys, how long are the continuances usually?
Till next month.
Steve had a comment.
Yeah, I just didn't know the other aspect that, sometimes you could think of it looks like there's a lot of gables, even in the triangular portions, you could get maybe some stuff shake in the gable areas even, you know, to add some design elements to it, even if, you know, in those spaces, you know, that are out there, sometimes they use those spaces to use it, but you know, I guess from that perspective, like I said, we had spoken to whoever drafted this saying that this could be an issue. And so, I guess from my perspective, and if anyone else wants to, chime in, feel free, is, you know, to provide us some drawings and we can kind of give you some feedback before we get back here, but, I don't know, I don't have a comfort level approving it when we don't know what we're looking at.
I might be able to get a look for it.
I don't think we're gonna want the plan. We're gonna want it spelled out. Basically, what I would do is I would look on our agenda and I would look what the conference center did, like that packet right there. Maybe I'll give you that, and that's what you're gonna need to bring back to next meeting.
Okay.
It'd be nice to have consensus with the HOA too on color.
Sure.
They,
But, okay.
Could we approve the materials now so you can, he's gonna paint it later?
That's up to you guys. If you guys want to do something else,
That
by all means.
No,
He
this is so incomplete.
needs to order his materials.
Materials on site,
Some of them, yeah, and windows.
ordered it already.
Okay, so
So the Hardy is on site?
That's correct.
Oh my gosh, oh no,
I'm so, I've never been through this process.
yeah.
And that shouldn't matter one way or the
Yeah.
other.
I had no,
The time is already well ahead of the horse.
Wow, gosh.
That's not for, you know,
Sounds like our sign approval process.
excuse me?
I said it's starting to sound like our sign approval process where the sign's already been constructed and maybe even erected, and then they come in for.
Well, he just made a mistake.
all right, so let's give him some clear direction for continuance, I guess is what we're gonna end up doing.
Are there people on?
Correct. There are two people on who have their hands raised.
Okay. Do you have anything to add? Okay.
no, I guess not.
All right.
An opportunity to speak at the end if need be.
Okay. Any presentations by other proponents?
This is Burke Snow, one of the owners of the complex. Yeah, tough situation, obviously.
Mailing address? Mailing address?
3946 Southwest Coronado Street, Portland, Oregon, 97219. This is a tough situation. Most of us are new owners and kind of came in to this complex and finding out after the fact that there was completely delayed maintenance over the years. That's our fault. So we've got this exposed siding or exposed wall that was the drywall was repaired a few months ago, and we've been trying to figure out how to go about this. Like I said, we're a small HOA. We have pretty little funds, and this project is already going way out of our comfort zone. We did definitely consider the Hardy Shake, but it was cost prohibitive for our owners. We did, and I guess this didn't come clear to WRB, but we did agree on a all surfaces light gray with white trim. Obviously, we need some specifics on the details of that color scheme, but that is our plan going forward. We are just kind of terrified at the amount of cost overrun project is going to be in general because of the, like I said, deferred maintenance and we are likely to uncover a significant more amount of dry rot that will run up the cost. And so as far as the hardy plank goes, we wanted, as owners, we wanted something that was going to last quite a while and need little maintenance. And we did definitely consider even cedar shake versus hardy shake. And those options were prohibitively costly for our underfunded small HOA. This is, we are very worried about the dry rot continuing to rot and this project kind of being delayed and the costs of it going up. So we are just very nervous about the whole situation, and I apologize that this presentation of our predicament is a little lacking, but we're kind of in a tough situation from a building and financial standpoint, and we're hoping to get this place patched up and looking better, because right now it looks pretty run over as far as the shake. They're well overdue. Anyways, and then the dry rot is just a huge concern for me and the other owners.
Thank you. What else?
Is there another one?
There is.
Somebody else.
I have a question on that. Steve, is there any reason why they couldn't proceed with substrate repairs, get the building wrapped, and then come back to us next month?
If you guys are comfortable with that,
but we're not approving anything of a final finish.
that would be up to you guys, to consider.
We have a continuance, that's exactly what you could do, right?
I would say, yeah.
I mean, do they have a building permit?
Typically, they don't get a building permit until this process is complete.
Okay.
Because otherwise we don't know what product we're talking about. So the answer is no, we would not issue a building permit until we knew that it was approved by the DRB, or unless the DRB put specific conditions on what they're allowed to do up front. So there is quite a bit, and one of the things I think it would be worthwhile for the applicant to show is the surrounding buildings and things like that. I know there's another condominium complex that's right adjacent to this that I believe is used hardy. Not saying that's right. If they were to try to show other, areas around there, but anyways, I think there's another person.
Yes, Heather?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, board members. My name is Heather Hommel, mailing address 525 August Hills Drive, La Crescent, Minnesota, 55947. I'm also a member, homeowner, a member of the HOA, and just wanted to apologize for our lack of preparedness for this meeting. We are a small group. Almost all of us are brand new owners. I'm a new owner within the last year, purchasing this property in the end of 2022. We really are doing our best to make these buildings look like they belong in Cannon Beach. As it is right now, they are in disrepair. And if we could get permission to even just strip the roofs off, strip the siding off, and start getting going with some of the replacement of the dry rot so that we can secure our buildings, so that we don't incur future damage, or, worst case scenario, one of the buildings were to lose a wall or something, that would be very terrible. I can give you Pantone numbers if that will help you with the colors of the buildings. Like, we are very amenable to do ocean beach themed colors. Every unit in this area, there's 6 units total. There's 5 owners. We all face each other. we're the only ones looking at each other. There's no other, we butt up against like the grocery store, like there's the highway runs behind us, like no one is seeing whether or not we have cedar shake or not, unless they actually drive all the way down the street into the complex. So it's not an eyesore. We also want to look like we belong in Cannon Beach, and this is becoming a very large investment. This is not just a small do-it-yourself project. We're taking it very seriously, and we do want the outcome to be respectful to Cannon Beach and the people that live there. So I'm happy to give you Pantone numbers for gray colors that we've been looking at. We all are in agreement with gray colors with white trim. And again, we just would urge you to let us move forward with as much of this project as we can, so that, again, we don't incur more damage to our property.
Didn't you have a building inspection done before purchase?
I did, yes, actually, and it did not show any of these things.
I didn't hear you say.
Okay.
Inspection.
I'm not exactly sure how a lot of times we issue permits based on approvals.
Are there any presentations by opponents?
I don't know, but Mr. Burke has his, or Mr. Snow has his hand raised again.
He's not an opponent though, is he?
I believe he's a.
Are we moving on?
Hi,
I think we all want to.
thank you for hearing me again. One question I had, and yes, we got some bad advice, and the materials are purchased and on site, and that looks incredibly bad. I completely understand that. My concern is that even though, say that the materials weren't there, we still are unable to accommodate financially more expensive siding as far as hardy shake or cedar shake. Is this something where if we came back in a month with some more detailed color schemes and things, that are we still going to get kind of questioned about using the hardy board siding throughout the complex? And again, like I said, our complex is recessed off the street next to the highway. You cannot see it from the street. There is a large condo complex in front of us that is on the main street that has completely hardy board siding, the invisible view of the street. And then the other complex that we drive past to get to ours is also on the main drive, and is also hardy plank, without any sort of shake siding or anything. I'm a little, I know our presentation has been awful, and we're, like I said, we're big apologies for that. I'm a little frustrated that we've had this on the, we submitted our permits and things, and we had this on the board, and no one seems to, or at least some of you don't really have an idea about what the complex, where the complex is, what it's next to, to see that this is, there's no shake around us at all. But yeah, I'm just worried about coming back next month, and then, the panel telling us that we need to get more expensive siding when this is just not something we can afford. I would have to sell the place.
Well, it seems like continuation is.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to their plight.
Do you have any reservations with the roofing materials? I think we could probably give them approval to proceed with the roofing replacement and substrate repairs. And come back with a presentation on materials and colors next month.
I want to check on permitting.
Well,
Yeah.
It's commercial, everything.
I would be amenable also to using having the continuance only be with regard to color,
Approving
approving
Hardy.
the hardy plank. This does sound like it's not our job to fix the problem, but I'm sympathetic to their problem.
Me too.
Yeah.
I would move, we approve the materials and approve the roofing and then have a continuance on the color.
Seconded.
Oh. Further discussion.
I actually like one of the suggestions you'd said where they can incorporate like under the eaves, some shingles.
More
And
creative.
break up the monotony of the hardy board.
Yeah, and I think to the owners and the contractor, that is the same material. It might be a different shape, so it, I guess I would encourage it if they could do it, because I think it would look nice in the gables, as far as that triangular portions and things like that. I know there's certain budgets, but that's the same material. It's just different, so I guess I would encourage, I don't know if we want to include that as part of it, that we would encourage them looking at the gables, because I do believe it would look much nicer just adding that portion in.
I agree.
Good point.
I would approve adding that to my motion.
You want to amend your motion?
The shape type material, you mean?
Yeah, like in at least in those gable, like triangular areas. You see that oftentimes, and
Oh, that's what we did do down at the conference center when they were trying to do exactly the same thing. We just asked them to a certain point I'm sure you remember that, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the river.
I think it's a
And-
decent compromise.
It is a good compromise and
It gets them.
breaking up the monotony, because there's enough monotony happening.
Okay, so do we need to continue it, or can we just approve with that as a condition?
Well, we have to get the color still too. So yeah, we have to.
As to color.
Or continuing to color.
And so maybe a friendly amendment also continue as to color and to the design of the gables.
Exactly, yeah. Like, should we start over?
Well, there is a motion on the table.
Okay.
Sounds like a friendly amendment that's
Yeah.
accepted by the maker of the motion and the seconder. Seeing nods.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we hear the motion again?
So the motion would be to approve the work with a condition to return with colors and a design for the gables that incorporates shake or hardy shake type of materials.
I'd say bring a couple of color options too, because if you don't want to keep it going, like not just one. Okay, oh, somebody has to second that, sorry.
It's already.
It's a friendly amendment.
It's on the table.
Okay.
Yeah. We just need to vote.
Okay.
Before all, okay, can you just repeat where we're at?
Sure, it's the motion is to approve the application with the condition that the applicant must return for approval of the colors and for design of the gables that should incorporate shakes or hardy shake-like material, hardy shakes type of thing in the gables.
Okay.
Second? Did that happen? Okay.
I think it's already a
Okay.
motion.
Yep, so voting.
I was looking. Okay.
Any other comment?
Nope.
Those
So
in
they
favor?
they'll get their building permit given this motion.
Given this, yeah, so
if we're-
once we act, I'll just kind of mention to them what we're
Okay.
doing, if that would be all right.
Okay.
We're continuing it. Do we go through with a motion and approve? Wait and do that.
So I think it would be an approval. The condition, you know, it's an approval with the condition. They need to come back to the DRB presumably next month if they want to keep this moving for your approval of the color scheme and the design of the gables.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Correct.
Mhm.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes.
Off the record, can I just ask you guys something to get your opinion on it? So I understand what you guys are saying. It'd be nice to break things up. That's kind of how the original design went. Would you guys be amenable to maybe doing a board and bat in the gables? I'll bring a couple different choices for you to look at. It looks very nice. The Hardy shake is actually 2 times more expensive than the Hardy plank, and it's massively more to install. So I'd like to give you guys another look. I don't know if you've seen the board and bat look.
Yeah.
The board and bat and the gables and the plank does get a nice kind of juxtaposition. Is that something that you guys would be interested in seeing, or just bring back the shake design?
We've approved board and batten elsewhere.
Have you?
Okay, that just depends on what it is though, but
We don't
Make your case.
Yeah, so that'll be at the next.
Yeah, if I could comment real quick, I would say you've heard the gable and the shake, that's what they're leaning. But you can certainly bring a design with the board and batten, you know, to show, hey, here's what it looks like.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll get you that drawing and I would try to put something together when I show you that conference center that shows what's there and what you're doing so that they can act on it favorably next meeting.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, guys.
That's good.
Fine.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve me to sign the appropriate orders?
Am I good? Do I stay?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. I
I just didn't. I can hang.
Yeah, it'll just,
Whatever you guys.
change seats.
it's been this long, eh?
It's okay. I'm really hungry.
Is there a motion for the chair to sign the appropriate orders?
So moved.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Discussion items, any discussion items tonight?
Sorry, Dave.
It won't
Other
take
than-
long. I know you want to go home. I know. Well, I just wanted an update maybe on any direction, if you had a chance to talk to council about, the wording for signage.
Just briefly talked to them the other day that was something that was discussed.
Okay,
So the only thing that I was looking at the other day is maybe what I could do is if you want, identify a couple of areas to maybe show you. And just kind of say, hey, here's what I'm thinking,
sure. Yeah,
and keep it going that way.
yeah, that'd be great. That's all.
Hey, go to the order. I think we're good already. So meeting is adjourned.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
You.